What is going on? Welcome back. Woodward Bets back here on a Thursday. And as you can tell, special guest in the house, the gleaming dome of my boy, good friend, Dan Bach of Rotogrinders, joining us here today. Dan, a longtime friend of mine, done a lot of shows together over the years at SiriusXM on Rotogrinders, well over a decade now, Dan. So appreciate you taking some time and joining us. I know you know Scott from a lot of the live finals. So welcome in, my man. How we doing?
Doing great. I'm just happy that you're in the driver's seat this time, Beer, and I can just sit back and be a little bit more quiet and answer the questions where you've got to do all the talking here. But thanks for having me, fellas. Love what you guys are putting together here, and happy to be a part of it today.
Yeah, the roles are definitely reversed. Definitely learned a lot from you. Early days in Sirius, you'd answer all the questions or ask them all, and I just kind of fire away answers, like you said. So we'll switch it up here today. Let's get Scott in the mix. Scott, I can't see the whiteboard. I normally like to see what's going on back there. So with the three-man, oh, there we go. Turn the heat up. Exactly. You know, Dan's down there in sunny Jacksonville. We're here freezing our arses off. It's about 10 degrees outside, probably below zero, real feel. So, Scott, I know you're hibernating inside. You're too damn old to be outside.
Oh, that's the truth, man. My old bones can't take that cold, man. I'll tell you that. But, man, I don't know what I did to get this honor here to join two GOATs in the DFS industry on a broadcast here. I mean, Dan's been basically the DFS ambassador for all the years. And Beer was the main man they marketed for all those years. So, a lot of fun here, as you mentioned, Chris. Ran into Dan many times at some live events. We had some fun, as always, as those live events are. But, yeah, excited to get into everything here, break it down, and take a look at it. But, yeah, Chris, as far as the cold goes, if you could see on about 5 feet in front of my little desk here, there's a heater blowing up my arse because it is cold as can be.
Dan, what do we got for temps down there where you're at?
I think it's probably about like 70 degrees here in Jacksonville. Now, I'm moving to Nashville in like a couple of months, and I saw that they got like 2 feet of snow. Like legitimately, the whole city is shut down, and I'm not looking forward to that. I'm reconsidering here this decision because it is bright, sunny. I could go play 18 holes of golf if I wanted to right now. But, it is what it is. And, Rotogrinders scores and odds growing like crazy and looking forward to kind of having an even bigger role with them moving forward. But yeah, like it's that time of year, like a couple months of this. And then next thing you know, once March, April rolls around, it's glorious, but it's probably still cold as what up in your neck of the woods.
Oh yeah, we're not talking golf till like July around here, so we're gonna be locked in for a while here. But we are here to break down everything going on in the sports world. As always, make sure you're following us on Twitter at Woodward Bets. Make sure you're giving Dan a follow. His handle there, Dan_Bach, recently promoted, taking over the reins here at Rotogrinders. So excited for him. Well deserved, Dan. We've talked many times about this, so. Excited to see the direction you take, the next step you take with Rotogrinders, with scores and odds. We'll certainly mix a lot of that in here to the show. But glad to have you aboard here. Make sure you guys are following the network as well at Woodward Sports. Plenty of great shows throughout the day to keep you entertained. And we're hoping to do so here once again here on the show. Let's do a little recap of yesterday, guys. Scott, the Pistons, we broke down the game. We went in depth on them, hoping for some of them props to hit, and blowout city. I mean, we were looking good at the half. Sadiq Bey was halfway there. Cade Cunningham playing a good game, and that thing just got ugly. I mean, Kelly Oubre, 8 3-pointers made in the fourth quarter. I mean, the Pistons get blown out. We see a lot of bench players. So quick thoughts on last night, Scott. Certainly a letdown by our Pistons.
Yeah, that's a lesson you learn, especially in NBA DFS. If there's a blowout, pretty good chance your guys may not make it the whole and get all the minutes that you projected them to get. So that bit us last night, Chris. Yes, at halftime we were looking pretty good. I mean, Bay comes out scores the first 3 points. I was thinking, all right, we're looking good. Cade came out, was looking good. I thought those props were on the right track, and then the blowout monster ate all our hopes and dreams. But we're on to today. as you said, you got to have a short memory in times, but we won't shy away from our losses. But yeah, that one wasn't fun to watch.
Hey, we've been on a roll, so going to have those days once in a while. So the blowouts happen. It happens in DFS. Things can get away from you. We turn the page. Pistons back on the docket tonight against Memphis. So we'll dive a little bit into that game. But we got Dan here. That means we got to talk college football. I mean, Dan knows all the sports, very well rounded. But Dan, I think you'll admit college football probably your strength here. So let's start with this whole Jim Harbaugh situation. A lot of word that he may leave Michigan. Michigan coming off a very good season, disappointing, no doubt. Georgia took him to the woodshed, but as far as Harbaugh goes, turning this thing around, getting the team a Big Ten championship, finally getting that monkey off his back, beating Ohio State, representing the Big Ten in the Final Four. Obviously didn't end as they wanted it to, but now we're hearing whispers of Jim Harbaugh, Las Vegas Raiders. There's certainly some connections there. Bruce Feldman breaking stories down by you, Dan. I mean, this is gaining some momentum, and when there's smoke, there tends to be fire as well. Thoughts here on this Jim Harbaugh situation? Do you think he stays? Do you think he chases the money? We know he bounces around. I mean, it's San Diego State and Stanford, NFL to Michigan. So how do you see this playing out, Dan?
Yeah, I don't think he goes, and I'll tell you the main reason why. You mentioned money, and there's probably more money for coaches in college than there is in the pros. When you look at what Lincoln Riley got out at USC and a lot of the other coaching changes we've seen. So for me, I don't think it's chasing money. I think it kind of boils down to whether or not he wants to get out of the college grind. And what I mean by that is college is turning into professional sports with this transfer portal, with this NIL. That's, I think, the deciding factor is for him to look at it and be like, I don't want to deal with this new landscape of college football. This isn't what I signed up for when I came to Michigan. If I'm going to do this, I might as well just go to the pros, and then I don't have to worry about recruiting any longer. Now, at the end of the day, though, I think he stays. I mean, this is a guy who put his foot forward in terms of giving money back to his staff because of COVID and other departments in Michigan. And I think what happened this past year, everybody up in your neck of the woods was just blown away by the excitement you had in that win against Ohio State. And just, the season had no expectations and they get to the Final Four. So even though they got smoked, it doesn't matter. It was a great year for Michigan. So I think as long as the Wolverine alum pull out the stops and the boosters give him what he wants contractually, I think he's probably going to stay, because I just think it was just such a great year for them, and it really wouldn't be a fit for him to walk away. I think he could have walked away in the last couple of years for NFL jobs, even with some of the lack of success he had. But I'll be very shocked based on kind of the way that he's spoken and the commitment he's made to Michigan to this point to suddenly bolt for the NFL. It just doesn't feel like a fit right now.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. One of the things that's been talked about a lot here locally is why haven't they shown him the money yet? We saw Mel Tucker get a big contract, and that could calm all the concerns, all the talk of is he leaving or not. Show him the money. He signs his contract. He's here to stay long term. I know he just took that pay cut, like you mentioned, Dan, but I think that's the thing. And we're only a few days from that game. It's not like we're talking weeks or months. So maybe that's coming down the pike. Scott, I know you're more the pessimist here amongst us as far as the local teams go. Are you on the same page with Dan here? Do you think Harbaugh stays? Is this his home long term? Or is that a lure to go back to the NFL too much for him here?
I've always told my buddies in all the years, it seems like every year at this time we hear about, some kind of Harbaugh rumors. The last few years haven't been as bad as, the years past. But in my opinion, as long as his father is alive and he's still active down there at the program at U of M, Harbaugh's not going anywhere. I just think he still, enjoys being around his dad. I think his dad is a big influence on the program. So for me, if Mr. Harbaugh is still around, I just don't see Jim taking off at that point. Now, if Mr. Harbaugh is not around anymore, I would be more concerned, actually. I think that is a big part of why he does like to stay, why he's been around here. I think he enjoys that time. He's a big family man. I really think that has a lot to do with it. But as far as the money, yeah, Dan's right. I mean, he gave a lot of his staff and everybody money back. I was a couple $1 million he gave, something like that. So I think he's really deep entrenched here in the university. I think this, he had some success. I think he's just playing his leverage, really. I think he's just, hey, I want a little bit more money. Maybe he's politicking for more money for maybe some more assistants, whatever else. I mean, obviously some of the moves he made last year with the assistants hit a home run, which a lot of people talked about here. But I think it's just posturing, really.
All right, now I'm in a unique position here to have you two on the show. Let's stay with college, mix in a little NFL, and Dan, Jacksonville fan, Scott, Detroit Lions fan. So we got the top two picks on the board here. So we're going to put you guys to the test. Dan, obviously a rough season for your Jaguars. The whole Urban Meyer debacle. So speak on that if you want. Trevor Lawrence, are you concerned there? And you're sitting at the top of this draft. We know Aiden Hutchinson really upped his draft stock with those last couple games, especially that Ohio State game. So it seems as though Thibodeau, Hutchinson look like 1-2. This is certainly not a quarterback draft. So Dan, as the number one pick, what do you want to see Jacksonville do? What happens next with Urban Meyer? And does Trevor Lawrence, was he affected by Urban Meyer? Are you worried about him? Because he was the next big thing. It certainly was a struggle. He won't be the first quarterback to struggle in his rookie year. Just overall thoughts here and who you taking with that number one pick?
All right, we'll start with the number one pick, and I think it's very clear what they should do, and that's trade out of it. Jacksonville has so many needs, and even though this isn't a year where there's that quarterback up top, and normally when you have that situation, you're getting just a haul of draft picks or players or a combination of both. I think they just need as many assets as they can get. So if I'm the Jacksonville Jaguars, Thibodeau or Hutchinson, whoever you like better, neither of those two guys are going to go and change the franchise in a single season in my eyes. So absolutely need to be trading down. Will they do that? Hard to say. I mean, Balky looks like he's still going to be the general manager here. And, there's rumblings coming out that they are interested in O'Brien over at Alabama, former Houston Texans coach, which is just an absolute disaster. Like the fact that, I don't know that this is true, but if it's true that he is campaigning for him, there is your number one reason to get rid of him, because O'Brien doesn't deserve another shot in my eyes, not with Jacksonville. This isn't the direction you want to go with another kind of has-been coach. So my feeling here is a lot of this is going to be dictated about what direction they do go in the coaching ranks. Is it going to be a guy like Leftwich? I think it's got to be somebody with offensive ties or quarterback ties, mainly because what we saw from Lawrence this year was extremely disappointing. Not that anybody expected him to suddenly, be a Pro Bowler his first year, but the dude threw one touchdown over the last 8 games. It was just awful. He could not do anything. And a lot of that had to do with no playmakers around him. Top wide receivers all got hurt pretty much this season. ATN never made it into the season without an injury. So there's a lot of excuses to be had for him. And absolutely, am I worried? Yes. Am I giving up? Am I thinking he's a bust? No. But this has to get fixed, and it's got to be fixed quick, and you got to have the right guy giving him the tutelage that he needs, because Urban Meyer was an absolute disaster. I didn't even like the Darrell Bevel hire. I thought he was overrated as an offensive coordinator. So Jacksonville has a lot of work to do, and I don't see Aiden Hutchinson suddenly being the answer to fixing a lot of these problems. So trade down, get some more draft picks, and hopefully you can hit some home runs, because they've really struggled. And, to this point, they haven't had a lot of success in the draft. And, Balky's been there for quite a few years, even, in the last regime. So for me, he should probably be gone as well.
All right. Balky's out. Dan Bach's in. New GM. Who are you hiring as your coach?
If I'm a new GM, I don't really love Leftwich. And this sounds strange to say. I would probably look at a guy like Kansas City, Bieniemy, who had Patrick Mahomes and had a lot of effect on his career. If you brought in a Bieniemy and then maybe even, and call me crazy on this, sounds weird, but Matt Nagy's going to get fired from the Bears. I think you could do worse than him as your quarterback's coach or offensive coordinator. Maybe Bieniemy doesn't need that, but I think Bieniemy's going to get a look this offseason. He's been overlooked the last few years, and I think he's waiting for his shot. And we've seen the success of these younger offensive minds, guys like Sirianni, the guy for the Chargers, Staley. Both these guys have had quick turnarounds. So going to somebody with experience isn't always the right solution. And, Urban Meyer clearly didn't have NFL experience, but we've seen college coaches trying to make that transition to the pros, 9 out of 10 fail. So they're definitely not going to go that route. So for me, I think that Kansas City O coordinator, Eric Bieniemy, is probably going to be the guy who gets a long look, or should get a long look.
Yeah, like you said, he's been overlooked a few times here. And Leftwich, I think you want to see more. He's on the right track. He's doing the right things, but I just need to see a few more years, more success. And, when you got Tom Brady, things become a lot easier as an offensive coordinator. So I think Bieniemy, you're right, should be at the head of the line there. Scott, you're on the clock here, Lions. So Dan traded out, let's say Thibodeau and Hutchinson still on the board. So they've come out and said, we're not going with Hutchinson just because he's the local kid. If he's the better player, so be it. So one of those two, do you want to trade out as well? What are you doing here with the Lions' number 2 pick?
I think ideally trading out would be good. I mean, I don't think we're as bare coverage as Jacksonville does, but we still need a lot of help for that roster. I mean, that defensive side of the ball is just awful. We need help in the middle of the line. Obviously, we struggle against the run. Can't get to the quarterback at all. If I had to pick between Hutchinson and Thibodeau, I mean, obviously I know more about Hutchinson, but I really like the kid's work ethic. He's worked really hard. He ended up coming back for this season here and taking them into a position here nobody even expected Michigan to be in. So, I mean, I like a kid. He kind of reminds me like of a Max Crosby, where, he's just a high energy guy. I think he can, potentially be somebody like maybe a J.J. Watt or somebody like that. But, being a Lions fan, though, Chris, and a Michigan fan, I almost want to say, like, I'd feel bad for the kid almost in a sense if he gets drafted by the Lions, just how bad they've been. But you know what? I like his work ethic. I like his attitude. I'd like to have that in the building here with the Lions. So, yeah, if we're sitting there and Hutchinson's available, I'd surely make that pick without a problem. But to me, I mean, when you're building, I think that's more of a luxury type pick. We see these teams turning around quicker with like a quarterback, like Dan said. I mean, Hutchinson isn't going to turn around the franchise quick as like we've seen maybe like a Kyler Murray or Lamar Jackson or some of these quarterbacks that have come up. Like a Herbert. I mean, how well has he done? So, yeah, you're right. There's not really any quarterbacks here we're looking at. Maybe next year with Stroud and a few guys. So I would focus on the defense this next draft if I was the Lions. Try to build that up. If you can trade out of it and get you a nice haul and build that defense better, that would be probably the ideal situation. But if we got to make a pick, I want to go with the work ethic, and I'll take Hutch.
Yeah, everybody trading out of all these draft picks, try to get you guys to make a pick. You're trading out, but it makes sense. Without that quarterback or any quarterback, regardless, none of these guys are going to be top 10 picks. I don't think so. Detroit, though, I think you're right, Scott. Adding a piece, another year of Jared Goff, looking at it long term. Dan, I think you're taking the same view at Jacksonville. Things aren't turned over overnight in the NFL. It takes a while, it takes a couple of years. So, Dan, just real quick, out of these quarterbacks, say you had to pick one, maybe not as a franchise quarterback, but who out of this is the best quarterback option going into the NFL draft?
Yeah, I think the easy answer is Kenny Pickett. I also think that Sam Howell is probably getting a little bit too much shade. I think he's somebody that didn't have a great year, but he also lost like 2 of his best wide receivers, and he is a huge threat to run the football. And I think that he is somebody that has fallen too far down draft boards that I still think was a huge high school prospect, has delivered in the ACC against some tougher defenses there in the past couple of years. So I think Howell, if you can get him in round 2, and that's where people are kind of pegging him, I'd absolutely think he's worthy of that spot. I certainly do think, unlike you, I think somebody will slide up into the top 10. It seemingly happens every single year that, somebody looks at the quarterback position and gets anxious that they're not going to get who they want, or somebody's going to jump up in front of them. So I'd expect somebody to get into the top 10. But for me, I'd probably wait a little bit. And I think if Sam Howell, depending on what happens at the combine or whatnot, I think he's an interesting prospect in today's NFL, so I like him.
Yeah, we got a lot of chance for these guys to rise up. Still a lot of stuff to go until we get to the draft. So we'll see. But I just don't see any game changers. Scott's talking Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson. I don't know that we have any of those guys. But remember, Lamar Jackson, last pick of the first round in his draft class. So there is always that opportunity. All right, let's dive into the national championship game, Dan. I don't think there's any surprise that we end up with Georgia, Alabama, probably the best two teams in the country here. A little rematch of that SEC championship. So according to scoresandodds.com, Georgia up to -3 here on the spread, 51.5. And, we're seeing a lot of support on Alabama as far as the bets go. One of my favorite parts of Scores and Odds is seeing where the betting is, where the money is. 64% of the bets right now on Alabama, which makes sense. It feels like a little bit of recency bias. Johnny Public says they won the last meeting. Why wouldn't they win again? But we're seeing 56% of the money here backing Georgia. And that's the side that I'm on here, Dan. I think Georgia, obviously the much better defense. We know Alabama has the edge offensively, but all around, I think Georgia's the better team. Do they get their redemption here? Or is this Nick Saban is too good, Alabama too good? How do you think this plays out here on Monday night?
Beer, I'm siding with you here. I don't know that I'd lay the points. I don't know if that's the bet to make in this game, because I feel like it could easily just be a field goal game. But if I'm picking a side, it's going to be Georgia. And I think the main reason behind it is the last time these two teams played, the motivations were completely opposite. Alabama had to win that game. If they won that game, they're in the Final Four. Georgia, yeah, winning the SEC championship's a great accomplishment, but at the end of the day, they didn't need to win to make to the Final Four. On top of that, you had a Heisman Trophy up for grabs for Bryce Young. You don't have that this go around. John Mechie got hurt in that game. He won't be playing this go around. I think this is a very different dynamic. And the one thing that I was so impressed with was how Georgia responded in that game against Michigan. I think most people expected Georgia to win it, but I don't think anybody expected them to dominate it physically like the way they did. I mean, it was a butt kicking, and it was a physical butt kicking. It was wide receivers knocking corners on their rears. It was Aiden Hutchinson getting pancaked by offensive linemen. It looked like a team that pretty much was going out on a mission and were embarrassed by what took place in that last game against Alabama. Very focused. So for me, I think there's no doubt they're the better team. I think you look at the last game for Alabama against Cincinnati, and yeah, the score was pretty one-sided, but a lot of stuff could have broke differently. Cincinnati should have scored in that first drive. They had two easy looks at touchdowns that were dropped. They had a chance to get the ball inside the 10-yard line on a punt that was fumbled, and it just didn't break their way. And very simply, Bama just ran the football, and they're not going to be able to do that. The rushing prop on Brian Robinson's 60 yards, 65 yards. So they're going to have to really rely on playmakers. And outside of Jamison Williams, I don't know anybody else in that wide receiving core that you can look at as a bona fide playmaker. This isn't the year where they've got 5 first-round draft picks at wide receiver, whether it's Waddle or Ruggs or Smith or Judy. These guys that they've got behind Mechie are good, but Slade Bolden's probably not going to even be drafted in a couple of years, I don't think. So I think it's a different situation here in Georgia. This feels like the time for them to get over. But the problem is this, Beer, is what are the two things you want when you go into a championship game? You want the better quarterback, you want the better coach. And Alabama has both of those things. So that's why Bama's not drawn dead in this game by any measure. But I think this is the spot where Georgia finally wins their national championship, gets by Alabama here.
Yeah, I mean, those last two are my worries as well. I mean, Saban always has the coaching advantage, and you're right, a big game. He's going to be ready to go, plenty of time to prepare. These two teams know each other very well, and Bryce Young did enough to win the Heisman, was very good most of the season, some struggles here and there, but all in all, they definitely have the much better offense. Scott, to your thoughts here, Dan and I both on Georgia. I think Dan more of a money line play on them. I don't mind laying the 3 points here, but I agree it probably is a very close game. Where do you come out on this one, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sold yet on exactly what I'm going to do. I am leaning Georgia, though. At this point, was just kind of looking the other day, reading around, and Georgia literally for this entire class of seniors, they've had the #1 recruiting class the whole time. So, I mean, they are one of obviously the top recruiting universities in college football. So I think they just actually, I mean, how many times can you say that Alabama's going to be facing a team which actually could have a better roster and more 5-stars? And I think Georgia potentially could say that. Yeah, I agree with Dan. They do have the better quarterback. And man, there's just certain things in sports betting that we all know. You don't bet against Tom Brady and you don't bet against Nick Saban. I mean, those are two things we all know. But I just think in this spot here, I think you guys are spot on about the motivation here. All the motivation was for Alabama that first game. I think Georgia now has more motivation to play for in this spot. And kind of watching what they did to Michigan with the run, man, they were just so dominant in stopping the run. And if Alabama becomes one-dimensional, I don't think that's good for them. And I think Georgia would have a really good chance. But I think these two teams are so close that actually this is a game here where an interception, a fumble, maybe some kind of fluke play comes up, and that's for points. And I think that could be a deciding factor in the game. So really close game here, but I'm going to lean Georgia at this point.
Yeah, excited. Nonetheless, should be a very good game. Very entertaining. Dan, you got something else?
No, I mean, it was funny. I don't know if you can find the bet, but I would love to just bet that either team wins exactly by 3 points. I just feel like it's going to be a field goal game whenever it boils down to. I don't know if you can find that bet. I'm sure come Monday it will exist somewhere out there in the sports betting world. But I feel like that could be a fun one for you where you take either side and you basically say, I want it to end by a team winning by 3 points. You probably would get like 3 to 4 to 1 on something like that. Maybe not for both teams, but still, like you're getting plus odds on that wager, and I think it would be a fun one. But yeah, I think I'll give you one bet that I do like for that game. I think Jameis, even though I do like the Georgia side, I think Jamison Williams getting 2 touchdowns or more. I think you're getting it at over 5 to 1, and he's done that like 4 different times, and it's so clear that this guy is like the best player that they have on this offense, certainly in this situation going against Georgia. So I think he's going to get peppered all game long. If they get to the goal line, they're going to look to him. He can break one all over the field. So I really like that bet for him if you want to get plus money wagers on this Monday night. Jamison Williams scoring 2 touchdowns is an interesting one. And keep your eye on George Pickens, too. This guy is a huge prospect, was arguably going to be a first-round pick before his injury this offseason. And this is like his 4th game back, hasn't played a ton, but he did make a couple of catches a few weeks ago, and he's got all the talent, all the size, and he could be a sneaky one as well, either for something like a first touchdown or even as crazy as like offensive player of the game or something along that. You could probably get that at like 15 or 20 to 1 just because he hasn't had the stats. But he's a guy who could easily score like 2 touchdowns in this game and be a difference maker. So, give me those couple of wide receivers in terms of props in this game, and I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, like you said, as we get closer to Monday, we'll get more and more options and things to bet on. I heard some. I don't even know if this is true. Someone said you could bet on how much Duke's mayo is going to be dumped on the coach in that game. So that's as crazy as the betting world has gotten, where you can bet on anything these days. So gross for sure, man. But Duke's mayo, apparently a thing down in the South, Dan. Everyone raves about it. So Scott, let's shine a light here on some local stuff here. We got the Pistons in action tonight. We saw the blowout last night. A lot, Sadiq Bey, Cade Cunningham didn't play a whole complement of minutes to kind of put a stop in some of those bets we talked about yesterday. But back in action here again. But once again, Scott, we got to worry about the blowout. 13-point underdogs here. A Memphis team playing at a very high level right now, playing with a lot of confidence. I mean, Ja Morant playing at an MVP level. Desmond Bane continues to get it done. So are we worried about the blowout once again here, Scott? Do they respond? I mean, we saw them win in Milwaukee. We've seen them lose big like we saw last night in Charlotte. How do they respond here in a back-to-back coming off of that beating last night?
Well, the Pistons are very, very poor in second games of back-to-back. They've been struggling mightily here so far this year. I want to say they are 0-3 on back-to-backs covering the spread. So, I'd be worried about the blowout here too, Chris. Ja Morant, he's just been absolutely a beast here recently. But for me, Yeah, I might look at maybe like a John Morant under in his point total, which is 26.5. I just really think, Chris, that the Pistons are going to struggle. They're going to get down. And we may see what we saw yesterday, where some of these stars get limited action, especially in the fourth quarter. So I think 26.5 is quite a bit of points. But yeah, I think I would look at the under in that just because I do believe that this is a spot here for a blowout.
Yeah, I worry about it a little bit. I do think they'll bounce back some. I still like the points, rebounds, assists for Cade Cunningham. I mean, he just does so much. Only played 26 minutes last night. Almost got there on that alone, but that one has dropped now to 29.5 here in the FanDuel Sportsbook. So that's probably the one I would go with. I don't hate some of those unders as well. I mean, you worry about Memphis just going nuclear even in three quarters here. But if it is competitive, I think Cade Cunningham, a big reason that would happen here. Kind of a showcase game here against John Morant. We know these guys going head-to-head. We've seen the best out of John Morant when he's played LeBron James, Kevin Durant. Now, Cade Cunningham, certainly not that. But for Cade, this is a big spot. This is a big game against a guy that was just drafted very high a couple years ago. So that would be the one I feel okay about. He doesn't necessarily have to have a great shooting night. Can get almost all the way there just on the rebounds and assists alone. So that one at 29.5. We'll lock that in as one I am looking at here tonight for the Detroit Pistons. So let's talk some NFL.
One other thing, Chris, I was going to add, not to interrupt you there, but Brooks may be back for Memphis as well. So if Brooks is back, I really do like that under in the John Morant even more so because Brooks is a guy that could jack up all kinds of shots. So I think if he's back in there tonight, you'll have to double check and check that injury report. But he's definitely going to steal some shots from Ja. So I do. If he's in there, I really like that even more.
Yeah, and it sounds like Isaiah Stewart may be back tonight for the Pistons, so we'll keep an eye on that as well here. Let's talk some NFL. Dan, we got Week 18 for the first time ever. So we know this is more of a preseason type week. We know there's teams with motivations. We know there's teams that really have nothing to play for. So just kind of an overall view on the slate. And then any futures bets that you're looking at, Dan, as far as NFC, AFC champions, Super Bowl, things like that. So just kind of a 10,000-foot view here of our last regular season week in the NFL, heading into the playoffs. Thoughts on any of that?
Yeah, I think we'll get to the award stuff here because I think that's really interesting with only a week to go. There's still a lot of uncertainty there. But, this week, I think one thing you want to look out for is, obviously who's got incentives, but that's not just the teams. It's like the individual players. And, I think a guy like Cooper Kupp this week, going against San Francisco, look for him and this Rams team to really ramp it up here. They got a chance to win that division. San Francisco probably going to have Trey Lance under center. And I think this is a spot, though, where you got Aaron Donald, you've got this, incredible defense that's full of playmakers against a rookie quarterback who hasn't played much this year. I mean, what we saw from Lance last week looked good, but the competition is night and day between what they saw a week ago. So I think we're going to see the Rams put up some numbers. I think Cooper Kupp, he's like, maybe 10 receptions away, a little less than that, maybe to breaking a record. And he's, even though he won't win the MVP, there's a good chance he could win the Offensive Player of the Year award. He and Jonathan Taylor are basically even odds on that bet for this season. And I think Cooper Kupp is setting records that a lot of us didn't expect. So I really love the Rams in this spot against the 49ers, who's secondary, who I just don't think they're that good to begin with. I expect them to kind of turn it around. Hopefully Matthew Stafford gets a little bit healthier this week because he hasn't been great lately. But that's one spot that I'm certainly looking at. And Beer, I'm glad I'm on with you because explain to me why Aaron Rodgers is that much better of an MVP prospect than Tom Brady. Right now the odds are minus 400 for Rodgers, plus 550 for Brady. Yet this is a situation where Brady's got more touchdowns by a lot, more yards by a lot, one less win, and he didn't win the award a year ago. And yet he's a 5-1 dog. I mean, I want to think Vegas is out of their mind on this one. They're usually not, though. That's the problem. And I know you're a Packers homer, so spell it out for me. Why is Rodgers such a big favorite over Brady for MVP? I mean, in the Dan Box Sports book, I probably would have had Brady sitting at like plus 250, and here we are at plus 550. So talk me through that one, Beer.
I honestly don't get it either. I'll try to put the homerism aside here. Obviously, it's had a fantastic season, with all the drama we saw in the offseason and this whole toe injury thing and the whole COVID situation. To put all that behind him, put together a season like this, certainly impressive for Aaron Rodgers, but it may even say more for Matt LaFleur balancing all of that. But, Dan, I think to answer your question, it's the what have you done for me lately, where Tom Brady started out absolutely on fire. It was 3, 4, 5 touchdown passes every single week. Aaron Rodgers, we saw, they got blown out their first week against New Orleans. It looked like, oh, no, this team maybe isn't going to be so great this year. Maybe Rodgers is done. But he's really turned it on here over the last couple of weeks. And I think that's what's kind of driving everything towards Aaron Rodgers, to be honest with you. I'm with you. If I'm a sports book, it's pretty even between those two. I've even seen some arguments. You put Joe Burrow's numbers next to Aaron Rodgers. Outside of the interceptions, they look very, very similar. Same amount of touchdowns, about the same amount of yards. And you could argue Burrow carrying a Cincinnati team to where they are at is more impressive than Green Bay once again being the number 1 seed in the NFC, which we've seen them do multiple times over the last couple of years. So I think Joe Burrow not going to win the award, but that same argument that you make for Brady, I think there's other guys that you could add to the mix. So again, to answer your question, I think it's just it's the last couple weeks. It's the what have you done for me lately here with Aaron Rodgers carrying this team to that number 1 seed.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, too, like if you look at the numbers for Rodgers, they were so much better a year ago than they are this season. Like, yep. I mean, way better. Like there was no argument to be made whatsoever that he was worthy of that trophy a year ago. And I just know that like you've got this age factor with Brady, 44 years old, whatever it is. Like it's just feels like the narrative and the story. And honestly, the worst thing that could have happened, I think, for this bet is the stuff that came up with Hub Arkish about saying he wasn't going to vote for Rodgers because he didn't get the vaccine. Now I think like anybody who doesn't vote for Rodgers is going to have to answer these questions of, oh, is it because, he didn't take a vaccine, or is it because you think Brady's really the better quarterback? That probably played into Rodgers' favor to win this award. So, that's kind of my take on that. And in the same vein, one other award to look at too is you mentioned the Bengals, and LaFleur right now is like still like the betting favorite to win Coach of the Year. And I don't know how Taylor at Cincinnati doesn't win. I think you could even make an argument for Vrabel with Tennessee having a great case to win. But still, the odds makers love the freaking Packers for some reason. And LaFleur is sitting there as the favorite at plus 175. And I don't get it because Cincinnati was 25-1 to win the division. And, somehow, some way, both Tennessee and Kansas City would lose. They would actually have a chance to get the number 1 seed overall. So I actually think Taylor at plus 175 himself is a pretty good bet to win Coach of the Year.
Yeah, say our friends over at the FanDuel Sportsbook have even those odds between those two, both sitting at plus 175. Like you said, Vrabel right there at plus 250, not too far off. I mean, you lose Derrick Henry and still end up as the number 1 seed in the AFC when you could argue Ryan Tannehill has not been great this season. You were missing A.J. Brown for big chunks of the year. Julio Jones has been a non-factor, so you got to give him his credit as well. And what about a long shot on a guy like Jonathan Taylor to win MVP? And Scott, weigh in here as well. Well, I know it's a quarterback-driven award. Aaron Rodgers, a heavy favorite, like you mentioned, sitting minus 400. Brady up next at plus 550. Jonathan Taylor plus 1,400 here, guys. Gets a matchup with Jacksonville. They're huge favorites. What if he goes out there and puts 200 yards, 3 touchdowns on the board? Is that enough to pass Aaron Rodgers here? Is this just a foregone conclusion, Scott?
Yeah, I think it's down between the two with Rodgers and Brady. It just seems like it's always a quarterback award. I think one of these running backs would just have to have a Derrick Henry-esque type, full season, I think, for one of these guys to win that award. But I think what Dan said about the criticism about the vaccine is exactly why Rodgers' odds are probably so high. I just think he's in the spotlight. He's in the news. I mean, being on the Pat McAfee show and all the other stuff, I just think he's had himself out there a little more, and the pressure will be there, as Dan mentioned. So I do like that. But I mean, I don't mind your thought process there with Jonathan Taylor. But I just don't think that either one of these two quarterbacks will one of them two will be holding up the award. But maybe Jonathan Taylor. Don't they have a different award like the offensive? I know they have the player of the year.
Yep.
Yeah. So I can see him maybe
are both
squeaking
minus.
like that.
Yeah, him and Cup are minus 110 on that bet. So it's basically a coin flip. And I actually still like Cup way better because Taylor's had a really good year, but not like a transcendent year. Nobody's going to look back at 2021 and be like, oh, look at the job that Jonathan Taylor did. Like, man, I'll never forget that season where you've got Cooper Kupp ready to eclipse several records. And this will be looked at as, man, that was the year that Cooper Kupp was dominant, was the most dominant player in the league. And let's face it, he doesn't look like somebody who should dominate the National Football League. So I think that's actually a great bet. I wish I was in Michigan right now because I'd be pumping some money on Cooper Kupp to win Offensive Player of the Year because I just don't think that Jonathan Taylor is A, interesting, or B, doing anything that we don't normally see on a year-to-year basis where Cooper Kupp is. And he's in a great spot, in a must-win position, and they absolutely know there's records to be broken here with him. So I think at even money right now, at minus 110, back up the Brinks truck on Cooper Kupp to win that award.
I think it would take Jonathan Taylor. He gets 2,000 yards. So he's about 260-some short. Sure, he's got the 20 touchdowns, but I agree. Cooper Kupp is very close to some records. I believe it's 12 receptions away. And about 136 yards to catch those records. So, that being at even odds is certainly something that we could look at. How about Super Bowl favorites, conference favorites, anything like that? Green Bay has kind of risen to the head of the pack here, plus 380, Super Bowl champion. You guys see any longer shots here? I mean, we've talked Tennessee, Cincinnati, plus 2,000. I mean, are they too young? Can they make a run at it? Any longer shots here that you see, Dan, in the Super Bowl conference betting markets that you want to put some money on?
Yeah, there's two teams I'm looking at here. I think the Bills at plus 750 really fit that profile of a team that's been so close and hasn't been able to get over the hump, and they're ready to do it. Like, it's just kind of the narrative that you often see in the NFL and in a lot of sports is you got to lose a few times before you finally actually end up winning. And there's little doubt in my mind that, Josh Allen is one of the most talented players in the league. Guy can make every play, a super competitor. I think their defense is better this year than it was a year ago. And it just feels like this is their time. So at 7.5 to 1, I think that's a pretty sharp bet. And then if you want a longer shot, the Cowboys at 12 to 1, somewhat interesting too, just because I think that NFC is wide open. Packers obviously look really good, really strong, but Tampa Bay has injuries. I don't think anybody's looking at Arizona or the Rams as unbeatable teams. And Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, Ezekiel Elliott, maybe not what he used to be, Amari Cooper. They've got playmakers on that side of the ball, and then defensively, Micah Parsons has been absolutely incredible. Diggs has had a great year. Van Der Esch is still there. Gregory. They've got playmakers on both sides of the ball. So it wouldn't shock me to see them go on a run in the playoffs this year just because I feel like they're incredibly talented. So they're 12 to 1 right now to win the Super Bowl. I think those are my two longer shots I'd be looking at.
I like both of those. Dallas scares the hell out of me as a Green Bay fan, so I'm glad you brought them up. Yeah. And the old adage that defense travels, that defense is legit. I mean, you could see them shut down any offense in the league. And again, the skill players there, if it does turn into a shootout, they have plenty of firepower where they can go anywhere and win a game. So that team out of anybody, I mean, you can make a case. Obviously, you can never count Tom Brady out. That Rams team could go and win anywhere, but Dallas is certainly one that scares me more than those other two teams. And Buffalo, you nailed it. I mean, they're tailor-made for this. They've had their struggles. They're on the right trajectory. They've gone into Kansas City and won. I don't think they'd have any problem going into Tennessee and winning if they're the number one seed in the AFC, which is certainly what it's lining up to be. They have all the momentum in the world, so I like both of those bets. Scott, anyone outside of those two teams that you're looking at?
I mean, I could double down on my Rams bet that I placed at the beginning of the year, knowing that, Stafford would put it to us as Lions fans and win the Super Bowl. But pretty much the same odds at this point. But for me, I mean, the news came out with Derrick Henry today. I mean, you're going to get the number 1 seed, you're going to get pretty much arguably one of the best players in football to come back. So, I mean, I really like Mike Vrabel as a coach. I think his game management skills are superior to most. But, yeah, I think Tennessee is also right there with like a Dallas team. Maybe Tennessee gets lucky and falls some, fortune falls for them in the brackets where Kansas City maybe struggles and gets beaten along the way before they get to them. But I do like Buffalo, though. I think Buffalo has the best value. But for me, Tennessee is another team that I'm keeping my eye on a little bit.
All right, before we talk a little NBA, get Dan out of here. I know he's a busy man. Guys, any final thoughts in the NFL? Anything we didn't cover? Anything you want to shed some light on here before we turn the page here?
No, I mean, I'm just looking forward to – Go ahead, Dan.
I was just going to say fade Jacksonville. We only got one more game to do it, but it's a total dumpster fire. So bet the Colts minus the 16 and probably, laugh your way to the bank on that one.
Hey, they've had the Colts number. I don't think they've won down there in the last 5, 6, 7 years. So I agree with you. Colts probably run away with that one. Scott, final thoughts in the NFL?
I think Dan might have had a kick out of our Halloween show when I dressed up as Urban Meyer on our Halloween show and had a blow-up girlfriend on my lap for most of the show, which I had to walk. There it is. But yeah, we kind of chuckled about that one. But Dan, we appreciate you coming on with us today. It's always a pleasure to talk sports with you, and especially to get you two back together. I felt like a little kid in a candy store sitting here listening to you talk. So had a lot of fun. But hopefully we'll get to do it again. But yeah, you two were part of my drive for a long time on the way home, listening to baseball or whatever. It was mostly baseball for me. But yeah, always a lot of fun. So appreciate you guys getting the band back together.
Yeah, appreciate the invite, and definitely happy to do it again down the road. And it's great seeing the job that you guys are doing, and Beer, obviously super proud of everything you have accomplished and continue to do in this space. So keep it going, my man.
We appreciate it, buddy, for sure. You as well. I know you're going to run with that torch with Rotogrinders, scores and odds, blaze a trail that Cal, Cam, and the guys that have started, and I know you're going to continue to do a great job there. So we appreciate you for coming on. If you want to hang out while we do a little NBA, if you got to go, we'll talk NBA real quick, whatever you want to do here. But thank you to you for everything you've done for me in this space, for sure. I learned a lot from you, and we'll continue to do so in the future. So if you got to run, you can hit it, Dan. If you want to hang out,
I'll let you guys take it from here on the NBA talk. Again, unfortunately, corporate world has had to have me lose some things, and one of those things is tracking NBA night tonight. So you guys can handle that. Appreciate the invite as always.
All right, Dan, appreciate it. Again, it's Dan Bach, Rotogrinders.com, scoresandodds.com, leading them into the future. Excited to be a part of that. Excited to have you on the show, Dan. So thanks again. And good luck to you in all your bets here, and enjoy the playoffs and the college football coming up here.
Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, Scott, let's talk some NBA tonight. Again, 4 games on the docket, so we'll run through some of the injuries that we know. Again, always a long, lengthy injury list here in the NBA. So some big names that we will not see here tonight in the NBA. We know Steph Curry likely not going to play here tonight. He is officially out dealing with that quad injury. So a big boost to Jordan Poole, who we saw go nuts the other night. So he's certainly one of the better DFS plays on this slate. DeAndre Ayton will once again be out for Phoenix. JaVale McGee also out there. So Jalen Smith will continue to man the middle there. No Kawhi Leonard again, no Paul George. So the Clippers are going to be thin. So guys like Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann pick up a lot of that usage. No Kemba Walker here for the Knicks. So Alec Burks back in the starting lineup there. Desmond Bane, we mentioned him earlier, playing the Pistons tonight, but he looks doubtful. So we'll see if they get Brooks back. DeAnthony Melton also questionable there. Draymond Green will also miss for Golden State here tonight. And Klay Thompson will not make his return. He is getting close. No Derrick Rose for the Knicks. And Kyle Anderson doubtful for Memphis here tonight against the Pistons. So Scott, obviously Jordan Poole kind of headlining things here. Detroit, there's going to be value with a guy like Trey Lyles. We'll see if Isaiah Stewart's back in that lineup. But I mentioned Cade Cunningham. I think he's going to bounce back. Almost hit that prop with him, even playing the limited minutes. Still almost got to that prop. So it's one less tonight at 29.5. I still like that one a lot here. But thoughts in the NBA, but it's got to be highlighted by Jordan Poole here tonight.
Yeah, definitely Jordan Poole without Curry. I mean, Poole has just been – he's been one of the guys here that has been pretty surprising so far up to this point in the season. Definitely taking the reins over there. Gary Payton might be another guy too, 5,300 you could look at in that game that's really cheap. Draymond Green's another guy you could throw in at center for 8K on FanDuel that I don't mind. But, yeah, you're right. Cade Cunningham, 6,800. I think most of the usage is going to go through Cade, so I definitely like that. Trey Lyles, as you mentioned, another cheap guy you could throw in for the Pistons. Maybe a Brandon Ingram. Dylan Brooks there at shooting forward. But for me, Chris, yeah, you could even look at like a Wiggins if you wanted to potentially pivot off a guy like Poole. But for me, the scoring's going to have to come somewhere. It'll pretty much be Poole, but I can see Wiggins getting in there as well. But for me, Chris, yeah, the spend ups that I'd be looking at would probably be, maybe today is, if you don't go the Ja Morant, who's the 10-2. So if you don't want to go the blow up, maybe a more balanced lineup today. I know a lot of times we talk about stars and scrubs, but I think the question is, do you want to pay up for Ja and risk that blowout, or do you think the Pistons keep it close where Ja's going to light up the scoreboard? But yeah, for me, Chris, I think I'm going to have more of a balanced type approach today.
I kind of like Ja tonight. I think a lot of people are going to look at it and say, Detroit has no chance in this game. Huge spread. We saw what they did last night. So I kind of like going to Ja. I don't think he's going to have as much ownership as some of these other guys on the slate tonight. I think you'll see Lyles be pretty popular here. I think Chris Paul likely going to draw a lot of ownership. The Clippers guys we talked about, even a Devin Booker. So I don't mind going to Ja here in this matchup. You got to just hope, and it's kind of a double whammy. We place these bets on Cade Cunningham, some of the Pistons props. You play Ja in your lineups. You both need the game to stay close and competitive. So you're kind of putting all your eggs in that basket. But I do think Detroit bounces back here. As good as Memphis has played, I think they at least hang in this game. Stewart, again, sounds like he'll be back. That will certainly help give him a little bit of physicality, but Ja, certainly a guy I don't mind paying up for on this slate. So, Scott, any other thoughts in the NBA? Anything else that we didn't cover here? We've kind of been all over the place with Dan. We appreciate him jumping on the show for sure. But any other things we cover before we get to the best bets? Just want to make sure I didn't leave anything out here on this Thursday.
No, I pretty much only 4 games. There isn't as much hectic craziness as we always have, but yeah, just looking at these 4 games here, I think the Piston game is one that I'll be watching. But yeah, you know what, Chris? Sometimes we talk about hedging, kind of balance yourself and cover yourself. Hey, if you like Ja in the DFS circles tonight and you build your teams around him, I don't mind sometimes, maybe throwing a bet at maybe a under in some of his props or whatever else, because sometimes you can get better odds, or you just got to take a look at it. Some situations are obviously better than others. But I still think that 26.5, if they get blown out, I don't see him really getting there. So if you think it's a close game, yeah, definitely, you could hit those props. You could hit that in DFS. But if you don't, I think the under is a pretty good way to go too. But yeah, I'm more excited, Chris, for to get the weekend, get some college football playoff here on Monday. And then we got the NFL playoffs getting ready to start. It's always a fun time of the year. But we need to get it to warm up around here. Damn, it's cold outside.
I don't think that's changing anytime soon. You look at the weather, and we had a nice run where we'd get some 40s, a little bit of 50s, and looks pretty. And it's icy out there too. It's not just cold. You got to watch your footing. I'm walking around and plenty of little ice patches. You do the old Charlie Brown action on. So be careful out there, maneuvering out in the ice and the snow. But Scott, best bets time. Let's get the people some winners. Last night didn't go as we wanted it to, but hey. We're not going to hide from those. We hope to have more winning days than losing days. I think we've certainly proven that we're going to do that. So let's bounce back. There he is. We try to avoid seeing him, but he pops up every so often. I think we've only seen him on 3 occasions. Out of this is what, our 101st show. So that's pretty damn good odds. We're only seeing the stinky guy, about 3% of the time. So let's bounce back. Let's put the spray down. Let's get out of the bathroom. Come back 35, 45 minutes, and let's get some winners. What do we got? Best bets Thursday night.
And then, Chris, in the NBA, I'm going to roll with the under. And our favorite team to bet on with the under, and that would be the Knicks. Minus the 207, and I know I stole one from you. Woo!
I love me some Knicks unders for sure. So don't hate that play at all here tonight. I'm going to stick with the NBA. I'm going to give you one prop we already talked about in our focus on the Pistons. I'm going to go with the combo here of Cade Cunningham. So we're talking points, rebounds, and assists. Right now in the FanDuel Sportsbook, that number is at 29.5. A little bit of juice on that at minus 113. So we're going to go with that. And I'm going to go with the Phoenix Suns here tonight against the Clippers. It's a big number, a 10.5-point favorites, but the Clippers without Paul George, without Kawhi Leonard, I don't know how they're going to come up with enough offense here against the powerhouse in the Phoenix Suns. So I think Phoenix wins by 15 plus. I'll gladly lay the 10.5. So Cade Cunningham over 29.5 points, rebounds, and assists. The Phoenix Suns minus 10.5. My best bets here for Thursday night. So 4 best bets on the board. Come join the show tomorrow. Scott, I think we got to bring back Beers with Beer tomorrow. So we'll fire that back up. We'll continue to look at the NFL, update the injury report. Big night in the NBA tomorrow as well. So we'll break that down, continue our look at college football, breaking down that Alabama-Georgia showdown looming, and everything else happening in the sports world with recaps of the local teams as well. So big show tomorrow. Make sure you're tuning in tomorrow night at 6. We'll be back Saturday morning at 9. And, of course, our big NFL show covering Week 18, 9 a.m. Sunday morning, taking your questions, betting, whatever it may be. Join us Sunday morning, 9 o'clock for our NFL show. Scott, final thoughts for the people here Thursday night. What do we got?
Man, them picks we got smell like money, Chris. I love the smell of me some money. So let's get those picks in right now. Let's get them booked and locked in there so we can come back tomorrow and avoid that stinky man that Spencer likes to put up there for us.
Absolutely. So we don't want to see that guy for a while. If he pops up about once a month, we're doing something right. So we're going to bounce back here tonight. I got a good feeling about these best bets. Huge thank you to Dan Bach, a longtime friend of mine, joining the show. Heads up, Rotogrinders.com, scoresandodds.com. Make sure you were checking all of that out. Some great DFS and gambling information over there. So go and check that out. Follow Dan on Twitter at Dan_Bach, but glad to have him as part of the festivities here on Woodward Bets. So we'll certainly do it again down the line. So for Scott, for Dan joining us, and for our boy Spencer behind the glass, I am Beer. We are Woodward Bets. Thank you so much for watching. Best of luck in your DFS and your betting tonight, and we'll see you tomorrow.